Start recording. Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second last week of tutorials. This morning we're going to do a past paper in revision for the semester test approaching Friday. Questions were asked about the duration and uploading of the semester test. The semester test is going to be 3 hours long. You're going to have 10 minutes reading and you're going to have an hour to upload. So in total you have 4 hours and 10 minutes including upload time. But again, please, if you have not uploaded within that time frame, the paper will not be accepted. So make sure you don't use that extra hour for extra work. Once the time is up, start getting it uploaded onto Eve. Make sure your design is uploaded. Make sure your code is uploaded. Test your code that is uploaded correctly. This is very important, ladies and gentlemen. Download and test your code. You have the ability to download and test it. Do so, please. Because if you upload incorrect code, we only can mark the incorrect code. The responsibility falls to you to make sure that the code that is uploaded is the one that is going to be marked. As for supplementaries, there is no, oh, you did badly, here's a sub. Ladies and gentlemen, you each have one opportunity for the semester test. Unless you are sick, then you have to provide a sick note completed correctly on a sick test application. We will not accept sick notes separate. We will only accept sick notes that have been completed correctly on the sick test application. That'll be announced tomorrow in class and put on EVES. If there's another reason you could not do the test, then we need an affidavit uploaded along with the paper. Ladies and gentlemen, again, there is no sup on a sup on a sup like we had in semester test 1. We have semester test 2, 1 supplementary. That is it. If you do not write one of them, I'll be seeing you next year in this module again. Okay. If you've done badly in your practicals, remember your practicals count 10%. I'll come back to your question, Omar. The practicals count 10% over all. Semester test 2 counts 65%. So it's the one thing you must do correctly. And a word of warning, your practicals and semester test 2 are going through a copy checker. Okay, just to avoid any potential problems with the papers. Okay, this is to do with integrity, etc. So be warned that if you get an email from Mr. Andres myself about your semester test, it may not be a good email. So keep that in mind. For the design algorithm in semester test 2, do we include important buttons like last semester, or is it just calculations? You include the events. Okay, for every event, you include algorithm. The copy checker compares your work, ladies and gentlemen. The details on how it works is I am not exactly sure. Mr. Maganal designed it. You'll meet him when you do ComSci 2 and ComSci 3. It's very accurate, and we normally be able to pick up people that have been copying. If you ask how copying, I don't know. People have ways. Yeah. So let's get started, ladies and gentlemen. Any other questions before we start? I'm doing a 2015 semester test 2, paper 8 test. It is on Eve already, so if you want to download it, you can. The question I want to ask the class or the people in class right now is, which section do you want me to focus on? Do you want me to focus on the creation of the objects and respective classes, or the focus on the saving to file? Which point do you want me to focus on the most? I'll explain both, but I will only type and focus on one section, saving to file. I'll test the objects, don't worry. I'm going to ignore the objects. I'm just not going to type it out. That's the only difference. If you've got a bit of background noise, I apologize. I do have a garden service cleaning up the yard. Okay. Now, I will discuss the question and the objects, but I'm just not going to type out the objects. Just keep that in mind. So here we have the question, the Intergalactic Labour Alliance has noted with alarm the difference in income between unskilled workers and highly skilled professionals in various planets. This has been increasing drastically over the years. Concerns with social inequality. The RLA is aiming to ask each planet to implement minimum wages. However, since the economics on different planets differ, the ILA has approached you to assist with them by developing a visual application that will help them determine the minimum wage to each planet. Note that a minimum wage is not the same as its lowest wage in an array. Some weird popping noises in my headphones. Okay, so we want to know what the minimum wage for a planet is. So we have our object-oriented programming ensures implementation of best practice, blah, blah, blah. Create a planet. Class called planet. Now here we have name, wages, and average. Please look at the types, descriptions, and example data. Make sure you're aware of what's going on. And look and notice here, it's calculated. This is an input, this is an input, this is an input. This is a calculation. Everyone okay with that? Headphones have gone a bit wonky. Yeah. Because of power surge on them. Okay. In addition to planet, okay, and also notice things like this. With sequential files, there's more focus on the objects. So, okay, I need to change my headphones because these ones are making a popping sound. I apologize. When it comes to sequential files, it's important to keep in mind that, I don't know if I can change that, too much of an issue. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me? Okay, much better. Some reason my other headphones were providing a popping sound. That's very nice. Okay, now notice on this one, the only average, I think I have more background noise now though. Only property method we need is for average. We don't need a property method for name, average, or number of wages. These aren't concerned with in property methods. But you need the following methods. And now this is important to take note of with your sequential systems because we focus more on the classes. The classes have more functionality because there's more work to be done with the objects. So a constructor that accepts name, number of wages in order to do all the necessary initializations, such as setting the attributes num wages during initializations, you may assume that num wages argument will always be greater than 0. What does that mean, ladies and gentlemen, in layman's terms?
Validate.
Pardon? Validate. Thank you very much. Also, that means the array. That's basically making sure that the array has a size. Okay. So calculate average, calculate stores the average of the average array in a variable average. Is this a function or a subroutine? It's calculating the average. Is it a function or a subroutine? Sub. Good, excellent. How do you know it's a subroutine? Lichman, I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly. You're correct, it says it does not return. What is important to notice is it stores in average. We're going to have a look at the code in a few minutes, but I want you to... This is why we're going to give you 10 minutes of reading time, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you read carefully and you understand the question. Okay? Mr. Van der Vestes and myself will make sure that the paper is easy to as possible. But again, if you don't understand something, you're welcome to go into Discord and post a message. We'll have a Discord service set up specifically for the semester test, as we always do. You can also email us. So please, if you don't understand something, email us and ask questions because it's important you understand it. Calculate average wage, a method that calculates a minimum wage for the planet by calculating and storing the average of the wages array in a variable average. It returns average. The calculation of the minimum wage may differ from planet to planet. No, it just doesn't make sense quickly. Okay, this is the average. Okay. Min wage, a method that calculates the minimum wage for the planet by calculating, storing the average of the wages array in the average variable. There must be a point for this. We'll get to it now. It returns average. The calculation of the minimum array may differ from planet to planet. That's fine. We'll come back to this because I think there is a part of it that is affected by composition or inheritance. Output, a string representing the planets, displays two-decimal formatting, the average, blah, blah, blah. It wants it in this format, even with the funky brackets. Okay, so be careful of that. What was that I was getting? That wasn't the emails I was getting. Okay, so it wants this in that specific format. In addition, the following classes inherit from planets. So we have inheritance. We have a developed planet. Okay, it creates the following. It has a GDP. It has a number. GDP number. It's a gross domestic product of a planet in billions. The number of developed planets records in a verification 3. That's fine. Now, here is why I said calculate minimum average will differ. So here we have a constructor that accepts num, av wages, and GDP. Okay, that is important because we already have a constructor here that accepts name and num wages. We have to have that pretty much going through the entire program, all the inherited classes, to make sure it doesn't break within my base. Now it says in order to do necessary instantiations, this includes keeping track of the number of developed planets being recorded in the VB application. This is a question here, ladies and gentlemen. This is why you're very keen on random access, but sequential has lots of tricks. What is number? Read number, and what is it? And why do you think I say it's a trick question, or trick variable? Any ideas? Why is number a trick? The number of objects created are that of a developed planet. Yes, it is the number of developed planets recorded in the VB application. So it's how many developed planets there are. What allows us to do that? There's a specific type of variable that has to be used here. And there we go. You have two opposing ones. Shared is the correct answer. It is a shared variable, ladies and gentlemen. That means every time we create a new developed planet, we increase the value of number by 1. This is important. This is why it's important to read and understand the question. Number. The number of developed planets recorded in the VB application. So every time we have a constructor, we increase the number by 1. So it's very important to know what number is. Next, calculate min average. Calculate and return the minimum average of the planet by dividing the GDP by the number of developed planets recorded. Okay, so there's a function. No, it doesn't start at 3 and go up. That's an example. Starts at 0 and goes up. Ladies and gentlemen, the fact that we have min average here and min average here, what does that mean? Overridable, excellent. So we have our base class that has overridable, and this overrides it. That's why this calculate average doesn't really make sense, because it does the same thing as calculate average, and then gets confusing. You need to read a bit further, and you need to find out that to calculate average for the next type of planet is a different calculation. So we got to keep this in mind. So returns the minimum wage for the planet by dividing the GDP by the number of developed planets. So number. Everyone okay with that? Yes. Calculate min wage is a overridable. It's being overridden in developed planets. We'll have a look at the code in a few minutes. I want you to understand the question first, and this is why we're going to give you 10 minutes of reading time. As is, we already used 17 minutes, and that was me with that headphone for a few seconds. So let's have a look at the next one. Everyone okay with a developed planet? What a developed planet is. Okay, cool. Now, a developing planet. A developing planet has a constructor that accepts name in order to do all necessary instantiations. A fixed number, 3 for wages, considering each developing planet. Okay, so here we have an array that is wages. Here we also have wages, but doesn't really impact much. Here we're saying the wages is fixed to size 3. Distance variable gets the evaluated. I'm not sure what your question is. Some context behind that, Rebecca, and we'll come back to it. So here it's saying that it has a name, and the number of the size of the array is 3, fixed. Calculate min wage. Calculate and return the minimum wage for the planet. This is effectively 30% of the planet's average wage. Okay, so again, slightly different calculation. Now, that's creating the objects. That's question A, B, creating the different objects. Now, question D, using a single array instantiate objects to store information of different planets. The number of planets, or planets, types of planets, and values of each planet will be inputted by the program. Now, is planet abstract? Why say it's abstract?
You don't include it in the form.
Okay. I'm going to go with correct there. Because we either have a developed or developing planet, so it's abstract. Even though there's not a single must override function, remember that. All of the functionalities are complete. The constructor, the min average, all of this is completed. There's nothing incomplete. The reason why it's abstract is, as the gentleman said, is we don't include it in the form. We don't want to create an object of type planet, so it's abstract. Using a single array created created in C above, display the details of the code in a multi-line text box. So display everything in a text box. Demonstrate polymorphism that you understand the correct by a single line of code in your Visual Basic application. I'll explain that. And then F and G is saving. So let's have a look at the code. Okay. Okay, so let's hit planet. Well, planet could be abstract, doesn't have to be abstract. So we have public class C planet name wages average. Okay, there. Serializable keyword because we are saving these two. So they are serializable. So we have our constructor, which is how we kind of what you look like. Is everyone okay with the use of me? Or we are using it now? Okay, so see a no there. Me refers to, just have a look here. When I select a variable here, do you notice all the references of that variable get highlighted? So if I'm selecting the name in the parameter, it's highlighting. Is it necessary to reuse me? Sometimes yes. If you look at the question, to avoid shadowing, yes. But it's saying the following, accepts the following parameters. It's giving specific names. So you have to use these names. So be careful of that. Don't read the question, just assume it's referring, and in fact it's got underscore as well. It's very definitely that you have to use those names in the constructor. Now the use of me, also accessing attributes directly, yes, but if I take away me, look at the scope of name. Name is now all three of those, correct? All three of them are the same variable. The software is lazy. It looks for the closest reference to the variable name. So it goes, my name is underscore name. Where am I seen? Where's the first time I'm declared? Where's the first time I'm made? And it goes, oh, I'm a parameter. Like, I'm done. Now, that's really what the one we want. We want the classes one. So we go me. We say me.name, and we're now referring to the global parameter. It's known as shadowing. Also, it makes more sense to have it like this because then we know what these parameters are for. So if I do this and this, it works, correct? No. Is there any error in the code? No. Okay. Is it easy to understand? What is X and Y? Okay, it's cuck to read. Okay, it's horrible to read. So we use the same name, so it's easy for us to recognize that the first parameter is the name, the parameter is number of averages. Yes, we could take away underscore n, underscore here as well, but we're testing your ability to understand shadowing. So just the questions are designed to test your ability to adapt to restrictions. Remember, there's thousands of ways to answer, but if we restrict you in some way, can you still solve the answer? Now, a restriction would be use a specific name or the specific spelling, and then you've got to think, okay, and I'm using the specific spelling. It conflicts. How do I overcome the conflict? And then the me comes into place. In other languages are known as this, so it just depends on the language you use. So we set the name, we set the number of averages, and we read them the wages. Everyone okay with that? Everyone okay with the constructor? As soon as you know how big the array is, you set the size. Okay. Don't wait till later on, especially with a class object. As soon as you know how big the array is, set the size. No, you won't lose. As I would also kind of go for abstract as well. We'll make it very clear in the semester test, don't worry. Every year we kind of improve on the way we ask questions. Okay, now this is the only property method as indicated by the question. No, we don't have to loop through the array, we just have to resize it. There's no reason to loop through it. We don't need to initialize it. It's not composition, so we don't need to create objects of each element in the array. All we need to do is simply create the array and set the size. So it's more about avoiding mistakes. To have wages, we have calculate average. And notice this calculate average is very, very straightforward. Are we redoing the code? Again, apologies for my dogs if you can hear them. We've got the code to calculate average here, correct? Okay. Now, do we need to do it again? Because remember, the first question was calculate minimum wage is find the average. Okay, so I'm getting the average and returning it. I'm not going to redo the functionality I've just done. Okay, so we'll instantiate it in the form. Yes, I'll show you when we get to the form. No, there's no min calculation. The way the question is structured for this one says that the minimum is the average. Don't always assume that if it says min, you've got to calculate min. Read the questions carefully. Because min wage is different for all three planet types. So be very careful of that. Okay, then we have our output. We calculate average again, just to make sure we've calculated it. In hindsight, we don't need to do. And we return the output we display. So we must call the sub in the function since it's the same thing. Yeah, pretty much. And also remember, it's overridable. It changes in each one. I don't think we actually need to do this. Looking at the code in hindsight. Because we call calculate average wage, which calculates that, which returns that, we don't need to do it. So then as our output. Okay. And if I remember, I'm focusing on the savings, so I'm just going to discuss the main fundamentals of creating the objects. So we discussed the attributes, we discussed the constructor, we discussed the wages property method, which is the only one we actually need. We discussed the calculate average. We discussed min average. Min wage. And then we've discussed the output, which is also overridable. Everyone okay with the planet object or planet class? Let me put planet class. Any questions about the planet class? And refer back to the question if you're not sure. Line 42. Line 42 is displaying this following line. Remember, we're going to display this per planet. The name, the wage, and the average. The name, the min wage, and the average. So we must display that at the end of the day. So That's then we're getting that display with the brackets, the formatting, and the average. So I'm saying display bracket name, bracket colon, format the average, and there should be a dash here, I think. So I'm just simply displaying this. And again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm recording this, so it'll be uploaded on Eve just now, so you guys can have a look at it. Any questions here? Everyone are comfortable with this? Does the planet object planet class make sense? Got a no and then a yes. Where have I lost you with the planet class? Okay, assuming we'll come back to it. Let's look at a developing planet. Or develop. Now, a developed planet is serializable, public class C developed planet, inherits planet, which we've already discussed. We have the GDP with the public shared number, which we already discussed while we need it. We have our constructor that accepts name, wages, and GDP. We have the marbase.new underscore name underscore what do you mean protected? So if the variables were protected, would you need to use, yes, you still need to use the marbase.new. Sorry about that, Mar. I just got disconnected for a few seconds. You still need to use the marbase.new because of the constructor. Because you have a constructor here that expects that. You have to have a constructor here that calls the marbase and passes the needed information. You have to do it. It's not to do with public, protected, shared. It's to do with the fact that your base class, your parent class, is expecting certain pieces of information for it to be built. Okay? If I'm building a 2-story house, can I build a second story before the first? Okay. That's what we're trying to, if we don't call the marbase.new, that's what we're trying to do. Remember, we're building on top of a base. We're building on top of the first layer. So if you don't call the base constructor, it's not going to build the first part. This builds the name and the num wages. So we've got to build the first part because this is how we've developed Planet to work. Planet doesn't have a parameterless constructor. It has a constructor that accepts information and builds the array. Remember that it's building the array. So we need to build the first floor. We set the GDP, and of course we go increase the shared number by 1. So when we use myClass functionality, when you want to avoid polymorphism, question. So the question said the constructor accepts parameter name, number ranges. Did it? Okay, so this one would be the name and wages. Okay, thank you for that. Is meet needed always? No, not really. Just depends if the name of the parameter and the name of the variables are the same. And depends on the question, actually. Sergio pointed out this one didn't really need them, doesn't need the mean. First one does, the second one doesn't. Is everyone okay with the shared variable? Why is shared public? Because we don't have a property method for it. There's never a thing that says shared can't be public. Shared can be public. It just depends on how you want to structure the question, how you want to structure the code. Now, GDP, there's no indication it must be number must be locked away at a property method. So you could technically do a property method, or you can make it public. It's your choice. So when do you use the myClass functionality? MyClass again is to avoid polymorphism. When you want to say use this class's functionality and no one else's. So it's a way of turning off polymorphism, I guess. I'll try re-explain it near the end. I just need to make sure we get through the work, as I've got a meeting at 11:15 as well. So I have very limited time, ladies and gentlemen. As normal with this time of year. So we have our constructor. Any questions about the constructor? Line 14. Line 14 is we're increasing the number which is shared. So every time we make a new developed planet, we increase the shared value by 1. Okay. Now we have our read-only property method, the GDP, which is we read it, we don't set it. How do we know it's read-only? That's the next question I would like to ask. It doesn't really indicate. That's your choice. Is it construction? In the constructor, is it okay to use the property method and not the instance variable? Yes. It's okay to use the property method instead of the instance variable if the property method has validation. So in this case, we don't make our attributes underscore. Yeah. Look, there's always a mistake in the test. We'll make sure we don't do this. I'm looking at this now. This is a slight typo. These should have been underscore. Like it's done here. It should be underscore to avoid potential problems. The GDP could be read-only or write-only. Could be a normal property method or read-only. There is no indication in the question that it is read-only only. Read-only. So this is more of a choice. So just be aware of that. Then we have our calculate the minimum wage, which we override, which is the GDP divided by the number. The number is the number of developed planets. So every time I make a new developed planet, it increases the value of number. How do we know it's read-only? You don't. You can make it either or. It could be normal property method or it could be read-only. There is no indication in the question. So I can't say it has to be read-only. It could just be a normal property method. But it does make sense once you've set the GDP here, you don't want to change the GDP later on. So it does have a logical connection at least. Let's go look at developing planets. Now, developing planets is different. First thing is it's not serializable because we're not saving developing planets. Okay, we inherit planet. We have our constructor, which accepts name only. It doesn't ask for the number of wages, like planet. Planet asks for number of wages and name. Our developing planet doesn't ask for that. It asks for name and nothing else. Because we're told in the question that the number of wages is always 3. So it is a fixed size array in terms of when you create it. So all we do is we go underscore name, pass the underscore across, and we pass 3. Understand? Okay, so there, keep in mind about that as well. You need to read the questions carefully to make sure this. So if we go back to the question, again, so if we look at the question here for developing planets, the constructor accepts the parameter name. Okay, man, there's a mistake in the code again. In order to do the necessary initialization, a fixed number of 3 wages will be considered for each developing planet. So a fixed number of 3. So we don't ask how many wages there are. We tell it it's 3. Because the question says, for a developing planet, it is name and the number of wages is 3. When we come to the overridable function, calculate min average. In this case, it's the calculation, the original calculation, divided by 3. Divided by 30%, or 30% of the average. That's the minimum. Again, that's from the question here. Calculate and return the minimum average of the planet. This is effectively 30% of the planet's average wage. So work out the planet's average and divide by and get 30% of that. That gives us our minimum. So on that point, everyone okay with that? Does that make sense? No, VB doesn't mind having extra parameters as long as you doesn't mind the child having extra parameter. VB complains whenever I add extra parameters to the child. The child will have extra parameters or less parameters, just depending. There is no limitations. It's just as long as you connect the parent and the child correctly, will it work? You must set correct parameters. Oh, someone's answering him. Okay. Remember, the parent parameters each one's first constructor is name and a number of wages. Okay? I am doing that. I'm not doing it. I'm giving the name and the number of wages. I'm saying the number of wages is 3. So I'm giving the answer to the question. I'm giving the information to the parent. I'm not avoiding the situation. Some electric sounds coming off your audio. I don't know what's going on today. I was hearing electric pops on my side. I'm not hearing them now, but it might be coming through. Or it could be by Jack Russell you're hearing. Okay, so any other questions on this class, ladies and gentlemen? Does this make sense? Again, if you're not understanding it, please ask. This is the point of the chat today. Ask. Pretty straightforward. Okay, good. Remember, this is uploaded on Eve, so you can go and have a look at it, try it yourself as well in practice. Yeah, I'll upload the recording as well just now, so you guys can follow along with the recording. But the main thing I want you to focus on is reading the questions carefully and understanding what you need to do afterwards. Okay, so any other questions on this one? Okay, fantastic. Now, developing planet, also very straightforward. And planet. Okay, so those are our three classes. You guys happy with them? How many marks so far in terms? That's 9, 13. Oh, hell, who's got a calculator then? This was a past paper, ladies and gentlemen. This is 2015's paper. In terms of marks, that's 5 plus 10 is 15. I think it's about 30 marks here, 30, 40 marks. I get 35 marks. And the rest falls here, right? In saving. Oh, no, not in saving. Sorry, that's not even saving. Saving falls here. So using the classes then gives you 24. Even if you don't save the objects, ladies and gentlemen, you still pass the test, by the way. You still pass. Has that electric noise gone? Okay, good. So how to notice a shared variable? Let's look at number. Look at what the question is saying. The number of developed planets recorded in the VB application. It's not talking. It's talking about a very high perspective. It's not talking about class level. It's talking about very like application level. This is object level. This is application level. So an application level variable is normally shared or very, very open access. Line 14, developing classes. What about line 14? Yeah, we're using the MAR base, so we're calling the parent classes calculation because we want the average. And we're timesing about 3. So we're calling the parents MAR base calculation and timesing about 3. We're not going to redo the calculation of how to work out an average. That's done already. Why do we want to redo it? Let's go to the form. Okay, simple, clean form. Nothing really is excessive. I just want to get rid of this. This is where we wanted to focus on. And oh, I had multiple options. Yeah, we'll come back to these. You can't just call average. Average needs to be calculated. Okay, let's go back to the question. Remember, average is calculated. You could either call calculate average, or you can call calculate min wage, either one. But if you call calculate average, does that give you a return? Does calculate average give you a return value? No. Okay, it's a subroutine. Calculate min average, min wage gives you a return. So that's why we're using min wage. It's about which one's applicable and gives us a result. Okay, so let's carry on moving forward, as time is also not on our side. So once we've got the arrays, we need to go and make once we've got our classes, we need to make the objects and create the necessary information. So here we have our array of planets, a number of planets. We ask how many planets there are, we read them, planets. We then give our choice, what type of planet are you making? We ask for the name because every planet has a name. So we ask for that. We then go and loop through and create our developed planet, or we create our developing planet. Remember, with a developing planet, we don't ask for the number of wages. We know it's 3, so it's 63. With a developed planet, we don't know the number of wages, so it adjusts. This also means every different planet has a different number of wages. Bear that in mind. This setup means that every developed planet has a different number of wages. It's not the same number of wages for all the developed planets. Is everyone okay while we're asking name outside the select?
Develop is equals to new C develop. Is it the same thing?
Yeah. You're talking about this. Same thing. It's just a different way of writing it.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
It's just this different way of syntax and grammar. It means the same thing.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, someone else has raised their hand.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I wanted to ask if the C planet class was an abstract class, would we still be able to create a planet array of type C planet?
Planet. Yeah. We're not creating objects of type planet, so it doesn't really matter. Let's make it abstract to see it won't affect the code. So must. And you'll see it has absolutely no impact on the code itself. The array is still fine. The app casting is still fine. There's no problems.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay. All it means is abstract means that an abstract class cannot be instantiated as an object. So when I want to create an object, I can't. That's the only thing that anything really means when you have an abstract. In this case, abstract could also mean something's incomplete. In our case, it's a complete class, but just part of it's not finished. Okay, and then the display and indicating its polymorphism is there. So for question D and E, create using a single array created in C, display the details of the planet and demonstrate that you understand polymorphism by correctly identifying the line of code in your Visual Basic application is which polymorphism takes place. Now, the only line of polymorphism is this one. All right. Where we do output. Line 30, upcasting, upcasting. There's no downcasting. There's no downcasting. You're talking about line 22 to 39. No. This is not downcasting. This is me creating an object of developed or undeveloping planet and upcasting it to the array, not downcasting. So I'm creating a developing and then getting the information, upcasting. Creating a developed and then upcasting. Okay. I'm okay so far. So I'm going to focus on saving to file. Now, we need to think of the files using a single array of planet objects created in question C. Save all the developed planet objects to a sequential file. You may assume the file is saved to a local folder. Okay, you may also create a file and save all the developed objects without having to create it, open, close, write again. So basically, this is create and save all the developed planets only. We'll come back to question G. So let's do the first one. So we have our FEMA binary formatter and we have our file name. So always we have file stream equals new file stream. It has file name. Yeah, talk.
Sir, I'm confused. Why this time do you have a modifier for the constant, but they said a constant does not need a modifier?
Where do we have a modifier?
Private const fl is string equals to.
I'm just making a private else as a public.
Okay, sir.
It's not a modifier, that's an access. It's an access that's access variable. It's not a modifier. Modifier would be something like a property is a modifier. It can change it. I'm just saying it's a private so someone doesn't mess with it. Binary formatter equals new binary formatter. If s.close. If s equals nothing. If equals nothing. And between them, we work. So what is line 53? 53 is a private constant file name. So I can't change the file name at any point while the code is running. I can change it now, but I can't change it while the program is running. It's a constant value, it never changes. So do we save everything? No. What do we save? What do we developed? We save developed. So developed as C developed. If type of planets E is C developed, then developed is equal to direct cast. This is downcasting. Planets C double comma C developed. And now we can say binary formatted dot serialize, right, binary formatted dot serialize, and we say file stream, and we're serializing developed. Message box, all objects saved to file. I don't care how I save the developed plans to file. So I went through the array, I checked which is developed, I downcast it, I saved it. So I'm only saving developed. Now, the next question, see my horrible spelling coming up there. I will do that if we have time. I'm going to keep track of time. My screen's gone blank. Hopefully you guys can see. Now, once we've saved, we need to reopen and do the following. The ILA financial manager is interested in knowing which developed planet of an on file has the highest GDP. A single line text box displays details of the developed along with its GDP. So out of all the ones in file, which has the highest GDP? Now you'll notice I've actually got two different options. There's two different ways to solve the problem. Now, depending on how you look at it, there's different ways to compare, but I'm going to go with a fairly simple one to show you how to compare. So what do we need to do first to do this comparison, ladies and gentlemen? What's the first thing we need to do? No. Max algorithm, yes. But on what? Remember, we have to do min-max on the object saved to file. So what's the first thing we have to do? And we've got my boss saying FS, file stream. Ladies and gentlemen, we first need to read from file. Read from file. Work out max. So first thing is read from file. File stream equals new file stream. File name, file mode, dot open, file access, dot read, boundary formatter equals new boundary formatter, fs equals close, fs dot close, sorry, fs equals nothing. You don't need to do part and bf equals nothing. This is more my habit, just making sure that the connections are severed. I can start programming. Ladies and gentlemen, do we need to worry about what is in the file in terms of what type of objects is in the file? No. Okay. We know it's all developed planets. Okay, so we know we have to, for each one we have to go and read it. So while fs dot length position is less than fs dot length read. first off, we're going to go num developed plus equals 1. We're going to read them the developed to num developed. Okay, so we got our array. Now we need to pull from file. So we say that the developed, let's copy this line, equals direct cast binary formatted dot deserialize fs. We're casting it to a C developed planet. Okay. So we've got our file stream, we've got a binary formatter. We've then gone and said, while we have something in the file stream, deserialize. Every time we deserialize, we increase the number of developed planets. We read them, the array, every single time. Have I made a mistake here? Is it going to work? Let's see if you... Thank you. Good. You picked up the mistake already. So I'm going to work out min and max. Spell. How do you work out min max? There's another way of doing this. I'm not going to show it to you right now because it's going to add to confusion. Is when you compare as you read out. It's another way of doing it. You guys can experiment and then ask me questions later. But my house is noisy today. But what I'm doing is I need to get all the different developed planets out of the file, shove them into an array so I can work out which one is the min max for the is it the minimum or the maximum I'm looking for? I'm looking for the max. So the developed planet with the highest GDP. So the only way to do that is to actually say to the computer, here's an array, work out the maximum. So it has to have an array. There's no other way to work out max without an array. So I'm transferring the information from the file into an array and then doing the calculation. Okay, so that's why we need the array, if that makes sense, Sergio. Because now, once we've got that, we work out max. So we go dim max as developed as, it's an integer, I think, equals developed 1.gdp, okay, dim index as integer equals 1. This is a double by the looks of it. Yeah. It's complaining it might not equal something, that's fine. You can say, you can do an if num developed equals is greater than 0, then and if, but only if we have actual things to work with do we actually go and work with the different planets. If num developed is less than 0 or 0, that means we have no planets to work with. If there is something to work with, it then gives us information. That makes sense, ladies and gentlemen. So now we do the for loop for p as integer equals 1, 2, developed. We say if developed p dot GDP is greater than max, then max equals GDP, index equals p, and txt dot highest GDP dot text equals, let's see what they want us to display, and display the details that along with the GDP. So it would be developed planet index dot display. These are two string on display. Go GDP, and we go join it with developed index dot GDP. Why is this complaining? Ah, damn it. Okay, it's complaining. Okay, why is it complaining, ladies and gentlemen? Let me ask you that. Let me not solve it for you. Why is index yes, you say?
Statement.
Say
Dim
that again?
index is inside. The local variable is inside the if statement. So the if statement.
Correct. The scope of the index is in the if statement and only the if statement. To fix it, move it outside the if statement. Excellent, thank you. To the person who spoke and to the person in chat. The scope of index was limited to the if statement. Once the if statement ended, it disappeared. Or it never existed, put it that way. So now it'll display what we needed to display. Don't always look for the most complicated solutions, ladies and gentlemen. I can break it down to simple things. Always break it back down to the simplest thing. Here, it says we want to know the max, and it must be from the file. The following question requires you to reopen the sequential file saved in question F to read the developed planet objects back into memory. Your code must not depend on knowing how many objects exist in sequential file. Your code must also cater for possibility that no developed objects were saved to file. No records were saved to sequential file. So there's my if statement. Now the question is, the LA financial manager is interested in knowing which developed planet on file has the highest GDP. In a single line text box, display the details of the developed planet along with their GDP. So I read all the things from file. I check. Technically, this should be in the if statement. Looking at it again. So we can put index back. And we have an else saying else. Equals no developed planets on file. That handles if there's nothing saved to file. Okay, we finished a bit earlier than I expected, which is good. Excuse me. Any specific questions, ladies and gentlemen? I'm not going to save all of them to file. I've done it in a previous TUT, so you can just go and watch that TUT. I don't want to waste your time, as a lot of you are preparing for Friday. I want you guys to rather practice this. So download the 2015 paper and do it yourself. I'll download this and upload it to Eve. So you got I'll download the chat and upload it. Try it yourself. Try and understand how this practical works. Try to get through the different steps, and then you can watch the recording and see where you went wrong. You need to practice. The only way to get ready for Friday is to practice, ladies and gentlemen. It's not something about watching and listening to someone else, it's practice. The two string, okay? So technically, you guys would normally use play. So instead of saying, where's develop, instead of saying, it's output, sorry, my bad. I didn't know the name. It is output. My bad. Every class has a two-string function. It's just sometimes we use it, sometimes we don't. In previous years, we've used it to display by overriding it. If we have time next week, we might discuss it in like a Thursday chat. We still have quite a bit to cover with collision handling, social aspects, and what is the last bit? All right, it's social aspects, collision handling. I think we're done for the semester, ladies and gentlemen. Please, option 2, I'm not going to show you option 2. Option 2 is if you understand records very, very well. Okay, person with a hand up.
So how would we actually calculate the max within the while loop instead of creating an array?
Test it and send me what you think. Then I'll tell you. I'm not going to show you off the bat. It's not hard, but it takes a lot of you have to be very comfortable with the idea of files and while loops and everything else. It's not hard. It's just I don't want to add confusion to people that when you don't know need confusion. You guys are stressed enough for Friday. I don't want to add to it. Option 2, I'm not going to do. Will there be random access files? I'm not saying yes or no. Okay. We done? I think we're done, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not keep the tutorial going for no reason. If you have questions, I'll answer them, but I think we're done. I've gone through it. I've explained all the different facets. Practice is now your best friend. You can remember formatters.set binary. Formatters. But we can do it that way, right? You can do it that way without using an array. Yes, if you understand it, you're welcome to do it. That's why in the original memo there was 2 solutions, because if people did it, they could do it. It was possible. But I am in the mind nowadays, make it down to simple parts. Don't make it more difficult. You're under enough stress doing your semester test. You don't want to add more stress to it. So if you don't understand the while loop and you're not comfortable with it yet, don't try and do it because fancy. You're not going to get bonus marks. Rather solve it in the way you're comfortable with, the way you understand. And again, if you're not sure of a question, send a message on the Discord server or email myself or Mr. Van Investors during the semester test. We will answer you. I save them. Okay. So can you go up to where you save the file? That's where I save the file. So I'll loop through the entire array, checking for developed planets, and save the developed planets. And only the developed planets. That's why if you look at my developing planets, it's not serializable. And as soon as this video is available on Blackboard, I'll download it, upload it to YouTube, encode it, and upload it to Blackboard for you to download it separately as well. Remember, don't download from the Colab directly, as it's quite a large file. I compress them into a smaller format, and then you guys can download them. Not much data. But try it yourself. It is a past paper on Eve already. It's a 2015. Okay, try it. Try the different alternative. If you get stuck in the alternative, it's fine. Send me the code via email, and I will assist you. Okay, but I want to see you've tried it yourself. I don't want to see that you like half done and then said, okay, give me the answer. Try it yourself, see what happens. Best way to get ready for Friday is practice. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully everyone has a good day from here. Mr. van der Westhuizen will be giving class tonight. He most likely will be doing a different paper.